Okay, let's get into this. We've tackled complex subjects before, but this stack of sources, wow, it goes right for the jugular. It's grappling with maybe the most fundamental question you can ask. What is the value of a human being?
It is the ultimate ethical challenge, really. And what's so unique about these sources is the structure. I mean, they're not just philosophical essays. They frame this whole discussion through these fictional, high-stakes
Right,
debates.
with all these historical
So
figures.
exactly. You have figures like Adolf Hitler, Abraham Lincoln, Mother Teresa, Warren Buffett, a scientist, a rabbi,
Yeah.
all brought into this immediate, intense collision.
That is a massive clash of worldviews. So our mission here is to sort of synthesize these wildly different frameworks into something that makes sense. And the core conflict, I mean, it's laid out right from the very beginning.
It is human value inherent? Something we're just born with, something unchangeable.
Or is it something that's earned, something measurable, determined by, I don't know, race or economic output or power?
Precisely. So to guide us through this, we've structured this deep dive into three main parts, based on how these figures define worth. First, we'll look at value based on identity, race, and the power of the state.
Okay.
Second, we'll get into how it's measured, or maybe not measured, by things like economics and biology. And finally, we'll land on value that's derived from ethics and compassion.
We have to start where the sources start. And that's with the most chilling contrast imaginable. It really sets the boundaries of the debate. Value
Yeah.
based on state utility versus just inherent individual rights.
And we have to report impartially on these views, even the most disturbing ones, because they define the stakes. When you look at Adolf Hitler's perspective, as it's presented in these debates, it's entirely conditional.
Right.
Value is just. It's determined by your contribution to the strength and purity of the Volk.
The national collective.
Yes, if you benefit that collective, you have value. If you don't, you're a liability. Period.
And it's not just about what you produce economically. It's this warped system of classification. The sources make it clear. The argument is that the Aryan race is superior, which then justifies, well, it justifies eliminating undesirables.
It turns human beings into objects. The sources use this explicit, horrifying language, likening their removal to taking out the garbage.
It's a framework where worth is completely arbitrary. It's expendable.
It is the total moral devaluing of a human life, and that is the absolute extreme of the conditional value argument. And it's immediately contrasted very sharply by Abraham Lincoln.
Of course, Lincoln's entire foundation is the Declaration of Independence. Value is inherent, it's equal in everyone. It's based on being endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Exactly. And that view just places human worth completely outside the reach of any government.
And Lincoln's character in these debates, he forcefully rejects the whole idea of one group being superior to another. He says the duty of government is to protect these rights for all citizens.
All of them, regardless of where they come from.
Yes. He calls the idea of a superior race a dangerous falsehood, a direct attack on the moral fabric of a society. The government is there to protect a value that already exists, not to grant it.
Okay, so we have state utility on one extreme and then constitutional inherent worth on the other. But then you bring in Mother Teresa. Her perspective seems to transcend both politics and law. It's purely spiritual.
It is. For her, every single life is a precious gift from God. It has infinite worth. And this is the key part, not because of what they do, but because of who they are.
That just completely severs the link between worth and achievement, or
Yeah.
power or money.
Completely. She says the value of a person is measured by love and compassion. That's it. And to think of any human as inferior is, in her words, a sin against God and humanity. It's the ultimate definition of unconditional value.
So that gives us the ethical perimeter, right? Conditional worth, constitutional rights, and this divine unconditional love. But what happens when we move out of those spheres? How do modern disciplines try to measure value?
That's our pivot point. We turn to the more, let's say, pragmatic, data-driven side of things, starting with Warren Buffett, the economic view. He frames value through the lens of human capital, which the sources define as the most important asset for society.
So your value is your ability to produce, to innovate, to contribute to economic growth.
Initially, yes, that's where it starts.
Which makes sense in a business context. But what's so fascinating is that the sources then show him kind of wrestling with that definition. I mean, if you're only valued by your output, what happens when you retire or get sick?
Exactly. What happens then? If society only values people based on what they earn, it misses something fundamental about being human.
And he realizes that.
He does. The material shows this breakthrough where he realizes that pure economic wealth cannot be the measure of intrinsic worth. There's this powerful statement where he says his greatest achievement wasn't the wealth he built. It was the love and compassion he shared with people.
So even the modern archetype of wealth says there's a higher metric, a moral one.
Which is an incredible critique of a purely materialistic society coming from one of its main architects.
Wait, okay, if Buffett admits wealth isn't the real metric, why do we as a society spend so much time measuring worth in GDP and quarterly earnings? That feels like the central, cognitive dissonance.
That is precisely the trap, and we'll get to the philosophy of that. But first, let's look at it through the scientific lens. Dr. Eris Thorne represents this view. And science, of course, highlights the unbelievable complexity and uniqueness of every person.
Right, the genetics.
The genetics. Thorne notes that no two humans are genetically identical. We're the product of billions of years of evolution with this capacity for thought and self-awareness.
So the scientific view describes the complexity of the human machine, so to speak, our biology, our consciousness.
Yeah.
But it also acknowledges its own limits.
It has to. Dr. Thorne is very explicit. Science can't give a value to a human life. He says that has to be defined by philosophy and ethics. It's an honest admission. Science can analyze the chemical compounds, but it cannot assign worth.
Which pushes us right back around, full circle, to that inherent worth argument. And that's crystallized by the character Rabbi David, who represents that spiritual continuity.
He reiterates that value is inherent. It comes from a divine creation, and that life is sacred from conception to death. The sources then pose this really direct challenge to you, the listener. They ask, isn't a homeless human on the street just as valuable as a billionaire on Wall Street?
And the answer from the moral and spiritual figures is a clear yes.
A resounding yes. Lincoln, Mother Teresa, Rabbi David, they are all unanimous. Economic status is completely irrelevant to a person's intrinsic worth. Mother Teresa even calls the homeless the face of Jesus. She says they are priceless.
Okay, so if we accept that baseline, that every life is priceless, that inherent value is the what, then the next question has to be the so what? What is our ethical obligation to each other?
Right, and the sources keep coming back to this concept of the duty of the strong.
Yeah.
And it's defined as the strong should help the weak become strong. It's presented as a core principle of a moral society.
And Lincoln argued for that it's the responsibility of those with security and means to lift others up.
Exactly, not to oppress them or ignore them.
Yet this is where that contrast with the conditional view gets really sharp again. Hitler just dismissed compassion entirely. He called it a weakness.
A profound weakness. In that view, helping the incapable just weakens the genetic health and the power of the state. It's an ideological battleground. Is compassion our greatest strength, or is it a fatal flaw?
For Mother Teresa is, of course, resolute on this. Compassion isn't a weakness.
It is the greatest expression of our humanity, our greatest strength.
This brings us to the philosophical dimension, which is introduced by Professor Eleanor Vance. Philosophy gives us the tools to sort of see past just the economic metrics.
Vance's point is that we have to actively look at how our own societal values like materialism, the constant chase for wealth, actually diminish human worth.
Yeah.
They distract us from what's morally important. She's basically asking, what judgments are you making every day? Are they upholding dignity?
And the idea of freedom itself gets redefined here, with that amazing quote attributed to Nelson Mandela.
Oh, it's so important. To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains,
But to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedoms of others.
that transforms freedom. It's not just about me, it becomes a shared social responsibility. My freedom can't come at the cost of your dignity. If it does, it's not freedom, it's just dominance.
Which brings us to this profound ethical litmus test that keeps reappearing in all the sources. It's the final argument. The person you see in the mirror will decide the value of human life.
It's the moment of ultimate self-determination. The sources conclude that value isn't just granted to you from the outside. It is actively chosen by you, by your internal moral framework.
And how each figure interprets this mirror test is, of course, radically different. For Hitler, the mirror reflects strength, heritage, power, a validation of supremacy.
For Lincoln, it's about integrity. The reflection is of your actions, your values. It's that daily choice between what's right and what's just easy or expedient.
A moral choice.
An active, daily moral choice. And for Mother Teresa, the mirror reflects the love and compassion you've given to the world, a measure of service. So when you pull all of these threads together, the spiritual, the constitutional, the scientific, the economic, The conclusion is, well, it's pretty inescapable. Every human life is priceless. And true value comes from our shared humanity, from love, and from the moral choices we make.
It's our character, not our bank balance.
Exactly. Our commitment to upholding the dignity of others, that's what determines our value, not our status.
That's a challenging synthesis because it strips away all the external things we usually use to define success. The sources say that the decisions you choose to value will be your game changer in life. So if we accept that we decide the value of human life through our own internal choices, through that mirror test, then we have to ask ourselves, what personal actions, what values are you choosing to prioritize every single day? Are your choices reflecting inherent worth, or are they still somehow conditional? That's the ultimate question this deep dive leaves us with.